investigations. Edo Governorship Election Tribunal judgment leaked ahead of official announcement. Also, Bode George actually discloses that Wike has crossed the red line, declared war. Details now. Thank you for staying with us. The news begins with the Alliance of Sahel States, a recently established pact comprising 3 junta-led states, Mali, Niger Republic and Burkina Faso, imposing a 0.5% import duty on goods from the Economic Community of West African States member nations. In a joint statement last week, the AES said it aims to generate revenue to fund the alliance's activities. The levy, which took effect last Friday, applies to all goods from ECOWAS member states entering any of the 3 nations except for humanitarian aid. This new policy counters ECOWAS's intention of ensuring free movement of goods between its members and the AES countries despite the official exit from the bloc in January. ECOWAS had said goods and services from the 3 countries would still be treated under the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme and Investment Policy. The ETLS is a regional trade framework designed to promote duty-free and quota-free movement of goods and services amongst ECOWAS member states. However, by imposing a levy on ECOWAS goods, the AES is essentially introducing a trade barrier which contradicts ECOWAS's objectives. The new policy is likely to increase trade costs, disrupt supply chains, and drive inflation in AES countries by making imports more expensive while weakening ECOWAS's free trade agreement. Now, before their final official withdrawal in January, Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso had announced their decision to leave ECOWAS in early 2024 after months of tension between the countries and the regional bloc. The junta in all 3 nations had accused ECOWAS of failing to support them in their fight against terrorism and of imposing sanctions they claimed harmed their populations. ECOWAS imposed the sanctions following the successful coups in the 3 countries but later withdrew them. The 3 countries also rejected ECOWAS's request to reconsider their decision to leave the bloc. Following the official exit, ECOWAS issued guidelines on its relationship with the 3 countries and transitional measures to minimize disruptions for citizens and businesses. These guidelines include duty-free trade, visa-free movement and residence. ECOWAS said it intends to keep its door open if any of the countries want to return to its fold. While back home in Nigeria, several communities around Old Ilushi Road, Opere and Goodwill Junction in Uromi, Edo State have been deserted as residents flee over fears of reprisals and arrests. VOP News understands that this follows the lynching of 16 travelers by a mob last Thursday. Governor Monday Okpebolo, who was in Kano State on Monday, condemned the killings and promised justice for the victims. He disclosed that 14 suspects arrested in connection with the incident will be transferred to Abuja for further investigation. The governor also visited the Deputy Senate President, Senator Barau Jibrin, APC Kano North, during his trip. Meanwhile, the Arawa Consultative Forum has called for the establishment of an independent judicial panel to thoroughly investigate the tragedy. VOP News understands that many Uromi residents have stopped going to their farms and are seeking refuge in nearby towns. Fear of indiscriminate arrest and possible retaliation has gripped the community, especially amongst the youth, many of whom are fleeing. In a very recent development, however, the National Identity Management Commission has recorded a total of 170 million registrations for the National Identity Number as of February 28, 2025. According to the latest enrollment statistics from NIMC dashboard, 66,281,803, which is 56.5% of the registered individuals, are male, while 51,079,522, which which is 43.5%, are female. The data also reveals that Lagos State has the highest cumulative enrollment figure with over 12.6 million registrants, while Kano State followed with 10.2 million registrants. NIMS's enrollment figures as of February 28, 2025 currently stands at over 117 million unique records, the highest cumulative enrollment so far. Bayelsa, Ebonyi, and Ekiti states ranked as the three states with the lowest enrollment. In another development, however, the governor of Oyo State has recently actually disclosed that his administration will restructure the Alation Loyal Market Ibadan to avert a recurrence, or rather a reoccurrence, of the fire incident that destroyed goods worth millions of naira in March. The governor had also disclosed that the state government has provided some sort of palliative to victims of the fire incident. The governor had made this disclosure today when he carried out an on-the-site inspection of the market, noting that it was sad that though there was a fire station in the market, it could not stop the fire. He maintained that the government would work on the market with a view to put in place a proper architecture that could avert future fire incidents. The governor's statement was contained in an issued today by his special advisor on media, Sulaiman Olarawaju, and made available to correspondents in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. Makinde equally ordered the suspension of the planned demolition of a section of the market until a proper alternative has been provided for traders. Meanwhile, an anti-corruption group has accused Nigeria's Defense Minister Mohammed Badaru Abubakar of illegally maintaining private business interests while in office. The petition alleges he remains a director in multiple companies and operates a bureau de change, violating federal conflict of interest laws. The group demands an EFCC ICPC probe into whether he disclosed these assets, warning his actions undermine public trust in the Defense Ministry. However, the investigation has been called, and allegations of abuse of office and conflict of interest is contained in the petition. Now, a purported copy of the judgment by the Edo State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal has surfaced online just a day after the tribunal summoned parties involved in the case to appear before it. This follows a March 3, 2025 ruling where the three-member panel led by Justice Wilfred Buchi had reserved its judgment in the petition filed by the People's Democratic Party and its candidate Asue Godalo challenging the outcome of the September 21, 2024 governorship elections in Edo State. However, just this morning, April 1, 2025, the tribunal directed all parties to return the following day, which is on Wednesday, tomorrow, for the formal delivery of the judgment. However, what appeared to be a leak of the judgment document surfaced online, revealing a split decision of the tribunal. The leaked documents show a 2-to-1 split in the tribunal's ruling, which Justice Kochi and Justice A.B. Yusuf dismissing the petition, while Justice A.A. Adewale issued a minority judgment that ordered the issuance of a fresh certificate of return to Igodalo of the PDP as the legislative winner of the election. In the leaked minority judgment, Justice Adewale argued that Governor Monday Okpebolo's election was invalid due to non-substantial compliance with provisions of the Electoral Act. Justice Adewale noted that the petitioners, Igodalo and the PDP, had shown evidence that the total vote should have been 243,113 for Igodalo, with Okpebolo's tally standing at 210,326, which would have reversed the election outcome. However, on the other hand, the tribunal's chairman, Justice Kochi, in the majority ruling, acknowledged that there was credible evidence of non-compliance, particularly regarding issues like failure to record serial numbers in EC25B forms and overvoting. However, the tribunal found that the petitioners failed to prove these allegations, these violations, had substantially, however, impacted the election result. Justice Kochi stated that while there were instances of incorrect collation and exclusion of results, the petitioners did not provide enough mathematical or documentary evidence to demonstrate that the margin of victory was affected or that they had scored the highest number of lawful votes. Now, on to political situations in Nigeria. The former deputy chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Chief Olabide George, has berated the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Wike, for revoking the certificate of occupancy of the party's secretariat. While VOB News understands that recently, the FCT minister, who is also a member of the PDP, took the bold step of revoking the land title of Wadata Plaza. The government's decision was due to the PDP's failure to pay ground rent for the property. In addition, the title for the party's unfinished national secretariat in the Central Area Business District of Abuja was also revoked. Wike accused the party of failing to pay 7.6 million naira, which is the ground rent for its land title in the central area, despite being in power for many years and generating between 13 billion naira and 20 billion naira from the sale of homes. Reacting in an interview recently, Chief Bode George said the decision of Wike to revoke the party's land was a clear declaration of war. He stated that Wike, who is like his political son, has crossed a red line with such act. The elder statesman also revealed how he initially joined the Wike-led G5 governors ahead of the 2023 presidential election, but had to withdraw when the group was going against the PDP's dictate. You're currently listening to the World News right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM, and obviously we'll be heading into the news analysis segment where I'll be joined via the telephone with Barrister Eze Eluche. Barrister Eze Eluche is a political, national and social affairs commentator. Barrister Eze Eluche will be giving us his own professional and analytical insight into some of the stories read out on the World News at 6. Do kindly stay with us. Good evening and thank you for joining us on the World News today. How are you?
I'm very fine. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you. I sincerely do appreciate you joining us. Barrister Eze Eluche, there is quite a lot actually going on in our political landscape, all right? But let's look at the situation with what transpired in Uromi last week. Now, residents have leaving the state, and there are also complaints that illegal arrests have been made, meaning that those who were involved in what transpired have left the community, and a lot of innocent persons are being carried away by the security operatives as they've surrounded the area. Some of the residents are also afraid of reprisal attacks and they have left. And a new testament has come out as to why the persons who were supposedly lynched, they do not consider them innocent. According to one of the vigilantes, he disclosed that they received a tip-off from communities along Old Ilushi Road that the travelers had weapons in their vehicle. When they got to Uromi, the vigilantes asked them to step down, but they refused. One of them brought out a knife, and that was what triggered the alarm. Though no one is actually justifying the killings, but those involved in the mob actions have now fled, and while innocent persons are now being arrested, all right, he says one of the victims that there or witnesses said that the area remains deserted. How do you describe this situation or this scenario?
Well, one thing to start off with, we must always condemn mob actions, because the way mob actions work, both the innocent and the guilty wouldn't even know who is who, can be fall victim for mob action. So it should be condemned. But then one has to dispassionately look at the circumstances of this particular case. That axis, the Uromi Obiaja axis, has over the course of time been suffering from herdsmen attacks. Several communities in that area have been paying ransom. Women are raped by these herdsmen and they disappear into the bush. And the security agencies do absolutely nothing or little to nothing. So this thing has been brewing for quite a while, until when this issue happened. So what I will urge the security agencies, whether the police or the DSS, is that they should investigate and know exactly what transpired and know if indeed these herdsmen, these people that were killed, are hunters as they claim. Because that claim of being hunters is so spurious. Why are you traveling 1,000 kilometers to hunt? What are you hunting for?
No, Barrister Eze, in fact, one of the residents said that the hunters, or these persons were not hunters, that real hunters go with dogs, that their vigilantes have been tracking these suspected kidnappers, and that on the said day, they boarded a truck near Ubiaja with guns and large amounts of cash. The mistake was that they did not hand them over to the police, that the people were frustrated and they've lost loved ones they have suffered, and that the government has been very slow to act. They made reference to one time that they had taken some of them to the police and the following day they were released. They also made mention of one victim who was raped by one of them. She went to the market and saw the person. She went and grabbed the person and called an alarm, and people were thinking she was lying, and then she told them to check his private part, that he has a ring, and when they checked it, indeed they saw the ring, and they took him to the police station, and the following day he was released. So how are hunters caught with 2 bags of arms, with several guns, and then there is no watchdog, and obviously they've been trailed, they've been monitoring them? How do you describe the scenario?
Well, the scenario that happened in Uromi is not just peculiar to Uromi. It's the norm across the southern part of the country.
Yes.
Even in the Owerri axis. I mean, where I come from, where I hail, there has been several instances of these same Fulani headsmen being reported to you report them to the police station, they get released, and there's absolutely no prosecution. So it is expected that people who are the victims of these attacks and kidnappings will react ferociously when they have an opportunity. But by the way, what we should even ask ourselves, this amount of biased policing in this country is getting to the high heavens. It is stench. Is getting to the high heavens. Not too long ago, the lady with Deborah was killed. Deborah Yakubu was killed by people who claimed she had blasphemed against Prophet Muhammad, and she was mobbed and killed. Until today, nothing has happened. Even those who have been prosecuted over that case have been exonerated. The governor of Sokoto State did not bother to go and apologize to the governor of Deborah's home state. But in this instance, we are having the governor of Edo State walking all the way to Kano to go and do what I don't even know. So this bias must stop. Several communities in Benue, in Plateau, have been ransacked and extinguished, exterminated by this Fulani herdsmen. The chief of defense staff or the police inspector general of police does not make statements or go in to make arrests. So what is so special? Why are you now making all these issues when people in Uromi decide to defend themselves? When this kind of biased partial policing continues, people will one day say enough is enough. And one thing that the Nigerian security agencies must realize is this: there are more Nigerians than policemen and soldiers. There are more Nigerians than we have policemen and soldiers. So there will be a time when people will say enough is enough. The biased policing of biased security operatives should be very responsible to their duty. Wherever no life is worth more or less than the other. It is wrong that the mob action was used to exterminate so many lives in Uromi. But the same lives that have been exterminated in Benue, Plateau, Enugu, and Suka Axis, so many areas. What response has the chief of defense staff or the IG of police ever uttered in defense of those people? And particularly when the killers or the kidnappers are known to be Fulani headsmen. So this is very infuriating. And let the police and security know that Nigerians are watching. They are going to make unnecessary mass arrests in Uromi over maybe the unfortunate killing of these suspected kidnappers without proper investigation. The military did the same thing somewhere in Delta State. But when these killings occur up north, when innocent citizens, innocent villagers, innocent farmers are killed in their thousands or in their hundreds up north, nothing happens. Enough of this kind of mess.
All right, Barrister Eze Eluche, thank you so much for that. Let's move on to Kogi State. You know that Natasha Akpoti was barred from having to be, there was supposed to be a rally organized for her. And Natasha, in that rally, she says, I am not afraid of anybody. I am not a bastard. She actually arrived her constituency on a helicopter. And trust me, Barrister Eze Eluche, she was welcomed by a massive crowd. That crowd, they showed her so much love. The question now is, if she had such a large number of persons who supposedly voted for her, are loving her, and that she obviously has implemented in the development of her constituency, who were the persons that signed her recall?
Well, that's a very good question, and thank you for that. again, the issue of biased policing comes into play. Before the arrival of Senator Natasha in her constituency in Kogi State, the Kogi State Commissioner of Police, Nila Dantawai, had issued a release in the PPRO, it's for a PPRO relations officer, that she should not come into the area. The duty of the police is to protect people who are being peaceful. So if a senator wants to go to her constituency, it was the duty of the police to ensure that she goes there peacefully and not to try to scare her off.
Yeah.
Now, despite the police announcement that she should not go to her state, to her people, we saw the love, we saw the enthusiasm with which the people welcomed them. That points at very biased policing from the Kogi State Police Command. And this continues. This very sad episode continues to replicate across the country. If Nigerians begin to lose faith in the security agencies as being unbiased, it will not all go well for the policy, for the contraption. So I urge the police to learn to do their work effectively and not to lick the ass of any person in government. The Nigerian police is for Nigerians and not for any person occupying any political office at any time. What Natasha has proved by this visit is that the people who signed those, the 150,000 people who signed the petition, were mostly spirits. The police did not bother to investigate the video evidence of people mass printing, mass signing the petition. What they can now do is to tell her not to arrive in her home village. Very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
It's good that we're seeing all these things transpire, and we just keep on urging the police and security agencies that they should live up to the calling, live up to their oath of office, which is to the Nigerian Constitution and to the Nigerian state, not to Mr. Bola Tinubu or to the governor of Kogi State.
Barrister Esther Eluche, you needed to have seen how the constituent members welcomed her. In fact, the ground, the rally ground where she was supposed to converge with them seemed not to be enough, to accommodate all of them. You could see that overwhelming love, and she was there to tell them that she's not afraid of anybody. She spoke in her language most of the, while she was addressing her constituents. In that regard, do we think she'll be recalled before the 6 months elapses, or now that a petition has been submitted, INEC would proceed with her recalling?
Well, the fact is, if the INEC headed by Mahmoud Yakubu is still the INEC we know, I don't think they should even bother wasting public funds on that recall process.
Okay.
Mr. Mahmoud Yakubu can, as he did with presidential elections, sit down in his office and announce whatever results he wants to announce. And most likely that will be to recall her. I wouldn't be surprised. Why waste public funds on a nullity? It's the same thing they did in those cases. People were still when the results were announced. So if the process of the recall will be handled by this same Mahmoud Yakubu-led INEC, I don't expect any justice from that process. And the more Nigerians realize this, the more Nigerians realize the futility of the process, of the democratic process, perhaps the earlier we will not begin to think about ourselves and think how we can overcome this very, very sad situation.
All right, Barrister, before I let you go, there's a purported copy of the judgment of the Edo State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal that surfaced online just a day after the tribunal summoned both the APC and the PDP involved in the case to appear before it, right? And this panel is led by a 3-member panel, it's led by Justice Wilfred Kochi, who had reserved its judgment in the petition filed by the PDP and its candidate Asue Godalu, challenging the outcome of the September 21, 2024 elections. Well, this morning, being April 1, we don't know if this is April Fool because it's surprising. The tribunal directed all parties to return the following day, which is tomorrow, right? Well, there seems to be a leaked document of the judgment which surfaced online, and that document is revealing a split decision of the tribunal. The leaked documents show a 2-to-1 split in the tribunal's ruling, with Justice Kochi and Justice A.B. Yusuf dismissing the petition, while Justice A.A. Adewale issued a minority judgment that ordered the issuance of a fresh certificate of return to Ighodalo of the PDP as a legitimate winner of the election. And in the leaked minority judgment, Justice Adewale argued that Governor Monday Okpebolo's election was invalid due to non-substantial compliance with provisions of the Electoral Act. So what does this mean? There is a majority and then there is a minority judgment, which is a split decision. Obviously, this split decision is what made the court decide to rule tomorrow. How is the decision of the 2024 Edo gubernatorial election being released online? How did it get leaked online? What kind of thing is this?
Well, I mean, it's an unfortunate digression for the system. The court has merely summoned the parties for the judgment to be read tomorrow. So clearly, whatever is on online or wherever cannot be the judgment of the court. So we can, I mean, and I'll be hard pressed to make any comments on what.
But is it possible for a leaked judgment to be out? Have you ever heard it in your career that there's a leaked judgment online? Have you ever heard it?
Yeah. No, judgments leak at times, but the reality is that when a judgment is leaked, it's most likely a forgery because it is until it's pronounced by the court that it's a judgment. So what is leaking, what has leaked now cannot be called a judgment. It can just be typed. Yes.
So what if what came out is actually it, and just because the court was not expecting it to be leaked, then by tomorrow we hear a different judgment?
Well, I mean, tomorrow the judgment will be read, and that is from then on we can now begin to discuss the judgment.
Okay, so what does a split conclusion mean? For example, a minority judgment, and then there is a. Well, help me explain that.
No, what people have to realize is that at times the minority judgment could be what the Court of Appeal or the Tribunal, when it goes to the appeal court may decide that yes, the minority judgment is more sound in law and go with the minority judgment. That's why until these tribunal matters get to the apex court, to the final court, you cannot really say who has won the election or who has won the cases. A split decision means that the issues it's not unanimous. All the judges at the tribunal are not unanimously on one side, and which means that at the appeal level, the appeal court may tilt towards even the minority judgment. It's not impossible. Yes, so that's how it is.
All right, Barrister Eze, thank you so much for giving us your insight on some of the stories read out on the World News at 6. We sincerely do appreciate your input.
No problem. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, and just before we go, a volcano began erupting in southwestern Iceland today, just hours after authorities evacuated a nearby community and a geothermal spa, one of Iceland's biggest tourist attractions. Flames and smoke shot through the air as a volcanic fissure opened near the town of Grindavik, where some 40 homes have been evacuated. Now, the community located on the Reykjanes Peninsula was largely evacuated a year ago when the volcano came to life after lying dormant for 800 years. Webcams showed molten rock spewing out toward the community. Sirens sounded while the nearby Blue Lagoon geothermal spa was also evacuated. The magma flow began at about 6:30 a.m. local time, accompanied by an intense earthquake swarm similar to previous eruptions. Iceland sits above a volcanic hotspot in the North Atlantic, the most disruptive incident in recent times, with the 2010 eruption of volcano which spewed clouds of ash into the atmosphere and disrupted transatlantic air travel for months. And just before we go, here again are the top stories. You had tension, fear engulf Uromi as residents abandon homes amid fears of reprisal attacks. You also had Lagos Kano lead as 117 million Nigerians get NIM. You also verified that Governor Makinde visits Oyo Market, vows to prevent future fire outbreaks. Calls for probe as Defense Minister faces conflict of interest allegations. In a very recent development, however, Edo Governorship Election Tribunal judgment leaked ahead of official announcements. Chief Olabide George discloses that Wike has crossed the red line, declares war, calls him a political godson. And that's a wrap on the World News at 6. My name is Esther Nwachukwu. Do stay with us for the evening rush at 7. Today is going to be a very interesting day for the hot topics. Bye for now.